hope everybody is wonderful. I hope your day's been wonderful. We've been going for like a week, but it was purposely done because I needed you guys to miss the show. I needed you guys to miss the learning, and just know that if you come back here, this is where the learning is, right? So if you did miss the show, kudos to you because we got, some more goods for you. And last time we left off was on page 82, the power of awareness, right? I hope those that was missing the show definitely tapped in and went back, you know what I mean, and looked at the shows that was previous before this one. Uh, the power of awareness, what can I say? Neville Goddard definitely, shot a dagger at us with this book, a dagger of knowledge, and I hope you caught it, right? Like I said, go back, listen to the previous episodes. And right now we on Case Stories, not chapter 3, but we on Case Stories 3. We read 1 and 2 of the Case Stories, and we on page 82. So a little bit more, we'll be done with this book, possibly this week, for sure this week. And let's go, gang. We remember a piece. Your host with the most, Michael Boyd. This is the story of a very unexpected result of an interview with a lady who came to consult me. One afternoon, a young grandmother, a businesswoman in New York, came to see me. She brought along her 9-year-old grandson who was visiting her from his home in Pennsylvania. In response to her questions, I explained the law of assumption, describing in detail the procedure to be followed in attaining an object. The boy sat quietly, apparently absorbed in a small toy truck, while I explained to the grandmother the method of assuming the state of consciousness that would be hers, were her desire already fulfilled. I told her the story of the soldier in camp who each night fell asleep imagining himself to be in his own bed in his own home. When the boy and his grandmother were leaving, he looked up at me with great excitement and said, "I know what I want, and now I know how to get it." Surprised, I asked him what it was he wanted. He told me he had his heart set on a puppy. To this, the grandmother vigorously protested, telling the boy that it had been made clear repeatedly that he could not have a dog under any circumstances, that his father and mother would not allow it, that the boy was too young to care for it properly, and furthermore, the father had a deep dislike for dogs. He actually hated to have one around. All these were arguments. The boy, passionately desirous of having a dog, refused to understand. "Now I know what to do," he said. "Every night, just as I am going off to sleep, I'm going to pretend that I have a dog, and we are going for a walk." "No," said the grandmother. "That is not what Mr. Neville means. This was not meant for you. You cannot have a dog." Approximately 6 weeks later, the grandmother told me that was to her an astonishing story. The boy's desire to own a dog was so intense that he had absorbed all that I had told his grandmother of how to attain one's desire, and he believed implicitly that at last he knew how to get a dog. Putting this belief into practice for many nights, the boy imagined a dog was lying in his bed beside him. In imagination, he petted the dog, actually feeling its fur. Things like playing with the dog and taking it for a walk filled his mind. Within a few weeks it happened. A newspaper in the city in which the boy lived organized a special program in connection with Kindness to Animals Week. All school children were requested to write an essay on why I would like to own a dog. After entries from all the schools were submitted and judged, the winner of the contest was announced. The very same boy who weeks before in my apartment in New York had told me, "Now I know how to get a dog," was the winner in an elaborate ceremony which was publicized with stories and pictures in the newspapers. The boy was awarded a beautiful collie puppy. In relating this story, the grandmother told me that if the boy had been given the money with which to buy a dog, the parents would have refused to do so and would have used it to buy a bond for the boy or put it in the savings bank for him. Furthermore, if someone had made the boy a gift of a dog, they would have refused it or given it away. the dramatic manner in which the boy got the dog, the way he won the city-wide contest, the stories and pictures in the newspaper, the pride of achievement and joy of the boy himself, all combined to bring about a change of heart in the parents. And they found themselves doing that which they never conceived possible. They allowed him to keep the dog. All this, the grandmother explained to me, and she concluded by saying that there was one particular kind of dog on which the boy had his heart set. It was a collie. Wow. I like that. I just internalized that story. Let me know how you guys feel about that, right? If you want something, you got to act as if it's already there, right? Because the assumption is the ship to the realization. Let's go, family. We're going to give y'all the source, then we'll be right back with case story 4. Let's go.
We're literally programmed from birth to let the outside run the inside. We're programmed from the time we're born to let our present results dominate our mind. Now that's rather sad, but it's the way it is. If we don't really recognize that at a very deep level and change it, we're going to keep getting the same result. We're literally programmed from birth to let the outside run the inside. We're programmed from the time we're born to let our present results dominate our mind. Now that's rather sad, but it's the way it is. If we don't really recognize that at a very deep level and change it, we're going to keep getting the same result.
And we are back, family. I hope everybody's feeling bright. Put a smile on. It's a new day, right? And you get to control the day. So, case story 4. This was told by the aunt in the story to the entire audience at the conclusion of one of my lectures. During the question period following my lecture on the law of assumption, a lady who had attended many lectures and had personal consultation with me on a number of occasions rose and asked permission to tell a story, illustrating how she had successfully used the law. She said that upon returning home from the lecture the week before, she had found her niece distressed and terribly upset. The husband of the niece, who was an officer in the Army Air Force stationed in Atlantic City, had just been ordered, along with the rest of his unit, to active duty in Europe. She tearfully told her aunt that the reason she was upset was that she had been hoping her husband would be assigned to Florida for an instructor. They both loved Florida and were anxious to be stationed there, and not to be separated. Upon hearing this story, the aunt stated that there was only one thing to do, and that was to apply immediately the law of assumption. Let's actualize it, she said. If you were actually in Florida, what would you do? You would feel the warm breeze. You would smell the salt air. You would feel your toes sinking down into the sand. Well, let's do all that right now. They took off their shoes, and turning out the lights in imagination, they felt themselves actually in Florida, feeling the warm breeze, smelling the sea air, pushing their toes into the sand. 48 hours later, the husband received a change of orders. His new instructors were to report immediately to Florida as an Air Force instructor. 48 hours later. 5 days later, his wife was on the train to join him, while the aunt, in order to help her niece to attain her desire, joined in with this niece. In assuming the state of consciousness required, she did not go to Florida. That was not her desire. On the other hand, that was the intense longing of the niece. That's crazy. Case story number 5. This case is especially interesting because of the short interval of time between the application of this law of assumption and its visible manifestation. A very prominent woman came to me in deep concern. She maintained a lovely city apartment and a large country home, but because the many demands made upon her were greater than her modest income. It was absolutely essential that she rent her apartment if she and her family were to spend the summer at their country home. In previous years, the apartment had been rented without difficulty early in the spring, but the day she came to me, the rental season for summer sublets was over. The apartment had been in the hands of the best real estate agents for months, but no one had been interested even in coming to see it. When she had described her predicament, I explained how the law of assumption could be brought to bear on solving her problem. I suggested that by imagination, the apartment had been rented by a person desiring immediate occupancy, and by assuming that this was the case, her apartment actually would be rented in order to create the necessary feeling of naturalness. The feeling that is that it was already a fact that her apartment was rented. I suggested that she drift off into sleep that very night, imagining herself not in her apartment, but in whatever place she would sleep where the apartment suddenly rented. She quickly grasped the idea and said that in such a situation she would sleep in her country home, even though it was not yet open for the summer. This interview took place on Thursday at 9 o'clock. The following Saturday morning, she phoned me from her home in the country, excited and happy. She told me that on Thursday night, she had fallen asleep, actually imagining and feeling that she was sleeping in her other bed in her country home, many miles away from the city apartment she was occupying. On Friday, the very next day, a highly desirable tenant, one who met all her requirements as a responsible person, not only rented the apartment, but rented it on the condition that he could move in that very day. We got case story 6, page 87. I want to hold this one for y'all because I want y'all just to take those case stories in real fast and look at the power of assumption, right? Re-listen, read, remember, repeat. You guys got to repeat it, right? Because that's how you change the paradigm. Something can open the door, but you change the paradigm by continuously listening to it and reading it. So you already know, family, it's your host with the most,